Nick, hi. How are you, man?
Great to see you, Pete.
Good to see you, man. 2 years ago, just over 2 years ago, October 19, we first met here in LA.
That's right. And the Open Note offices,
Yeah, my little trolley.
a lot smaller operation back then.
Yeah, wheeled my little trolley and put it up on the desk. We made a show, and 2.5 years later, Bitcoin is at a very high price compared to then. We have a nation state that's adopted Bitcoin. We have a company in MicroStrategy who's just put fucking all the money they can into Bitcoin. It's a very different Bitcoin world. And you're also a published author.
That's right. A lot has changed in 2.5 years.
And we have a crew.
Love
helping us
Danny.
out. Say hello, Danny.
Hello.
Are you mic'd up?
I am mic'd up, yep.
Can't hear you, man.
Sorry.
Always turn yourself off.
Well, no, it's recording, but I am mic'd up.
You're so shy. How's the book going, man?
The book has done great. We're over 40,000 books now worldwide.
Wow.
Just over a year after publishing, and up to about 14 foreign languages. 3 are live, several more on the way. Spanish is coming really soon. I'm really excited about that one. And it's opened a lot of doors, which has been great. And I'm really excited about the future.
What's it like getting it translated? Because you won't speak the language, so things can get lost in translation?
Yeah, they can. And you have to do your best in the due diligence process. And Saifedean has been helpful in that a lot of the people that are approaching me have translated his book, and he's helped me, this is a good translator. I got good feedback on this one, and this one maybe you need to be a little bit careful with. So, using resources like that to help me. But I've had really friendly publishing partners around the world that have made, their translators available to me, and have asked, the translators have been asking me a lot of questions because, as you know, the layered money terminology is new, and it doesn't have a precedent really. And so trying to translate that into different languages has been difficult. I actually basically crowdsourced the title for the Spanish version. It's Dinero en Capas, which capas is like a way to say steps and not necessarily layers, because if you use the word for layers, it tends to refer to clothing.
Okay.
And so it just didn't make sense to use that layered word in Spanish. So little things like that, it's a big process, but it's a learning one.
Well, the title was super important.
Yeah, absolutely. The word layer is the key here, and it's what we're trying to do with the book is reframe the way that we understand the monetary system, away from balance sheets, away from accounting, away from a lot of these really complex and difficult to understand topics, and just put it in first layer, second layer, third layer, so that people understand exactly what type or what quality of money they have, how many counterparties they have involved in that money. And so, yeah, the word layer is right at the middle of it all.
And the feedback has been, I know it's been good, but anything surprising come out of it? Anything, somebody somewhere sent you a message, said, oh, you've read this book, it's changed my life?
Yeah, a few people from around the world have definitely messaged me and said, this book has made me change my career. I've read this book 4 times. It's made me, invest in Bitcoin and, away from XYZ. I've had people that thanked me because it's the perfect book to give their parents and introduce them to why Bitcoin is so important to them, which has been great. And then also policymakers, especially here in the United States, are referring to layered money as a potential guide to policymaking on Bitcoin and even central bank digital currency stablecoins.
Have a look up there. What's going on today? We've gone from 36.5 to 40.
So this morning we had the jobs print, and it was a very good number, like a big job ad here in the United States. So interest rates are moving, stocks are moving, and Bitcoin's moving. That's really what the case is here right now, is that Bitcoin is moving with the traditional markets, and in a very correlated way. Sometimes it's going down with stocks, and sometimes it's going opposite from stocks. But when markets are moving, Bitcoin is moving right now. So that's what, that's what's happening today.
I didn't even know that. I saw the price earlier. Yeah, wow. That is a big green candle. Good work, Bitcoin. And how's the book changed your life? You say it's opened up opportunities.
It's changed my life pretty much in every way. So before starting to write the book, I was a bond trader in the traditional finance industry, diving down the Bitcoin rabbit hole and basically a Bitcoin blogger hobbyist in 2018, 2019. And then writing the book was a huge risk, as you know, for me and my family to basically go without the job for the time that I was writing the book. And since the book has been published, not only am I've launched the Bitcoin Layer, which is my new publication on Substack. People can go find that at thebitcoinlayer.substack.com. That's where they'll find me now writing every week about Bitcoin transitioning to world reserve currency status. The layered money sets up, this idea that Bitcoin can progress over the coming decades to world reserve currency, and the Bitcoin Layer is here to narrate that here and now. I have another Bitcoin book in the works in terms of the research is starting.
What? Tell me.
Yeah.
Is this an exclusive, or have you announced
Of
this?
course, and the announcing layered money was also done with you for the first time.
It was.
And really, I'm so motivated to educate about Bitcoin, as I've found that as my calling. And post traditional finance world, I'm a Bitcoin writer. That is what the world has told me. I put the energy out, they put it back, they gave it back to me, that we want you to keep writing about Bitcoin. So of course it's going to end up with another Bitcoin book, and it's going to be a larger, I hope it to be more of a larger cultural view of Bitcoin and how it's changed the world. Not necessarily just what is Bitcoin as a currency and how does it fit into the history of currency, which was the first book. So, maybe taking a bigger angle, lens view of Bitcoin going forward. But it's going to take a lot of work there. It's going to take reading dozens of books from different eras, reading a lot of history again. And I want to also travel the world and sit down with real Bitcoiners in different places in the world and see how it's changed people's lives, getting outside of this American-centric price, which we're all victim of, right? We're looking at the price all the time, you and me both, but we're both also trying to build a better world using Bitcoin, and that goes right into culture. And so, I hope that the second book is going to be more to do with how the world is interacting with Bitcoin on a cultural level.
Have you got a title yet?
I do, but I can't. I can't yet. It's way too early.
Is it done, or is it like a working title?
It's a working title for sure.
Are you going to DM me and discuss it with me?
Sure, absolutely.
Well, I'm super proud of you. This is amazing. I mean, how good is your life that you get to spend all your time reading, learning, writing, sharing your knowledge, and now traveling the world to do this?
It's absolutely the best. And I know that's part of what you love about your job. It doesn't feel like a job. You're just living your life, and you're going around the world and talking to people and building a better Bitcoin future for us all. And I want to do that too. And so being able to write at the Bitcoin Layer and reach readers all around the world every week has been very special for me. And the readers are constantly coming back to me with ideas, thoughts, and propelling me forward. My subscriber base is also growing, daily, weekly, which the numbers speak for themselves. It means that more and more people want to read what I'm writing, and it's just incredibly motivational and special.
Yeah, and it's very exciting when those numbers just keep ticking up, and you can build a life for you and your family doing this, which is very cool. What a man. So today, I want to talk to you about... I did a show recently with Lynn Alden called The Currency Wars, and we were talking about the fact that there are sovereign currencies crashing, there are changing relationships between nations, changing options for people with regards to currency. We've seen El Salvador adopt Bitcoin. Tether is used all around the world. Alex Gladstein has talked about how Tether is used in economically challenging environments. We have China probably leading the race on CBDCs, but you correct me. But many other nations considering this
Leading the race on time.
on time. Okay. So that was a fascinating show with Lim. We got in a lot of detail. It was very popular. But I wanted to expand on it with you. I know, and especially on the CBDCs. I want to learn a bit more about that. But I also want to get your perspective on the future of money, the future of currency, where you think it's going. What is the role of Bitcoin? Is Bitcoin going to be a reserve asset alongside sovereign currencies? Will it replace sovereign currencies? There's like a whole lot to get into. I know many Bitcoiners think it will replace things like the dollar. I'm skeptical of that, but I want to have that conversation. But as a starting point, can we do like a full fill people in on CBDCs, like where we're at with it, as much as your knowledge as you can share, and we'll start super basic because you know what my audience is like, you know my questions are like. Can we just start by explaining to people what a CBDC is and what we know about the ones that exist?
Right. CBDC means central bank digital currency, and they only exist today because at a certain point, after about 5, 6, 7 years of Bitcoin's existence, central banks realized that they were threatened by this thing called Bitcoin, and they had to respond with their own version of something so as to not be buried in the ground over the coming decades. And that's what CBDCs are. They're a central bank attempt at surviving as an institution because their old rails, the system that they use, the old system has broken down basically since 2007, 2008. It's broken, it's in disrepair, and they realize that unless they come out with something new and copy Bitcoin really in some ways, they're going to be made irrelevant. So it's really a fight for survival. But then really early on in that process, the central banks also realized that we can actually use central bank digital currencies to gain power, to assure our survival over the long term, to exercise financial surveillance, to disseminate universal basic income via legislative bodies. All these things that they realized along the way, basically from about 2014 to 2016, this is when they realized they could do all these things with CBDCs. They decided to launch pilot projects, start writing papers about how can we roll out a central bank digital currency and how can we take advantage of this new technology, basically. And they barely acknowledge the word Bitcoin in any of their literature, right? At the beginning, they had to, but then they started calling it blockchain, distributed ledger technology, and all that. And basically ignoring the fact that it's Bitcoin that started all this and tried to shy away from that. So what is a CBDC? Think about people generally have two types of dollars or government currency. They have paper money, which is issued by the central bank. It says Federal Reserve note on your paper dollars. Or they have a checking account balance, like at Bank of America or Wells Fargo. The checking account balance is issued by a commercial bank, a private entity, and the paper money is issued by the central bank. So the commercial banking deposit is actually a third layer of money in the layered framework, whereas the paper money is a second layer of money. And a central bank digital currency, if it was to be retail facing, would essentially be the same thing as the paper money, but in digital token form. So it's like a digital cash issued by the central bank, but it's not the same thing as your Wells Fargo checking account digital dollars that you have on your screen. It's issued by the central bank, not a private bank. That would be a retail-facing central bank digital currency. The other side is a wholesale CBDC, which would basically be a reserve tool that the banking system could use. So right now, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, they have an account with the Fed where they keep reserves with the Fed. It's just a balance. That money could transition to a more, I guess, blockchain, for lack of a better term, a blockchain-based system that the banks use with each other to send dollars around the system. So you have the potential for a retail CBDC or a wholesale CBDC. I think you'll get both, and it depends what central banks we're talking about here. But I do think eventually you'll get both, and the more meaningful, impactful one will be the retail-facing one, which actually threatens commercial banks. Because if you're a postal worker and you get your paycheck from the government, they might give you Fed coins now, and you fire Wells Fargo, you never have to deal with your checking account again because your money comes into your Fed coin wallet and you can spend it at McDonald's, you can spend it on your rent. You never have to deal with a commercial bank ever again. I believe China is going that direction, where they're going to rid themselves of commercial banks. In Europe and United States, the central banks are very careful and aware of this fact that a central bank digital currency could make people fire their bank and threaten the banking industry. And so the ECB, for example, has said above a certain amount of digital euro, we will essentially tax you or levy a negative interest rate on that balance so you don't fire Barclays. Basically, you'll always keep some money in Barclays, because if you keep all of it in digital euro, we'll charge you negative balance, so that it's a motivator to not fire your commercial bank. And so that's a line that they have to dance around, and they are like I said, they're very aware of this balance, and it's one of the things that they're going to have to deal with.
Okay, a lot to unpack here. Let's start with, because I've not heard somebody explain CBDCs as a way of saving central banks. Is it really also a defense mechanism of the state as well?
Absolutely. It is the state. So the Federal Reserve has a charter that's been issued by the United States government. That charter can be changed at any time by the legislative bodies. The Fed is not going to be able to create a Fed coin without congressional approval and a presidential signature. They're just not going to be able to do that. It is the state. So the Fed will write papers. They say, we can do a Fed coin, and we've tested the technology, and it'll work. So, hey, Congress, will you write us a legislation that allows us to issue Fed coin? And then Congress will say, oh, wait, so yes, but we would like to put our own spin on it, and we'd like to give universal basic income via Fed coin. We'd like to pay our federal contractors and employees via Fed coin, all that kind of stuff, where the state then comes in and says, okay, this is now our tool. We are the ones that legislated Fed coin, so we get to decide what to do with it. So it's not just a central bank thing, although it's a tool that the institution uses to survive. But then the state, which has issued the charter for the central bank itself, the state then comes in and takes over and basically decides what to do with it.
Okay, so the long-term goal of a CBDC, is it to eliminate all other versions of the dollar? So there is a single blockchain for all movements of dollars, let's just say for now within the US. So you would no longer have cash. If you get paid on the CBDC, you go down to the store, you pay with the CBDC. Is that the eventual goal, that it would eliminate all dollars?
I don't think so, because in China, yes, I do think that is the goal. China has specifically passed a law that says no stable coin linked to the renminbi may be issued by a private entity, right? So that's the opposite of what we see in the West, where all these private entities are issuing dollar-linked stablecoins. In China, that is illegal now. So yes, in China, they might be trying to replace every version of the renminbi with this digital version of it. But in the United States and Europe, the evidence is that no, they don't want to do that. They don't want people to leave the commercial banking industry, because also that's where credit comes from. So you need banks to lend money to people, and when they lend money, they create money out of thin air. Basically, they leverage whatever reserves they have. So that process of credit creation, they're not trying to replace that.
Okay.
I do think they're trying to get rid of paper money. I do think they're trying to increase their surveillance over the financial system and what people are doing with it. Because now, people used to criticize Bitcoin for being criminal money. It's not a very good one, but cash is obviously the best criminal money. So getting rid of cash would be something that a government or a taxing body would be in favor of. But no, I don't think that the Fed is trying to replace every version of the dollar, because that would imply replacing the commercial banking industry and all the trillions of deposits that Americans have with their commercial banks, their private banks.
The transition to a CBDC sounds hugely complicated and painful.
It is. It's going to be, because basically you're forcing people to let go of the previous way that they've used paper for their own privacy. That's one side of it. And then also you're introducing competition. The Fed is now going to be in competition with Wells Fargo, Bank of America, and JPMorgan Chase, where it hasn't been in the past. And so you're going to see the banking lobby have a lot to say when FedCoin is starting to get legislated.
And at some point in this, if you have an account with Wells Fargo, you have a balance with them. When the CBDC rolls out, will that balance be taken from that blockchain?
No, I don't believe so. I believe that in the future, what you're going to have is these checking account deposits will turn into stable coins issued by those banks. So you'll have a Wells Fargo coin, a JPMorgan coin, and a Fed coin. Basically, the Fed coin will be like your digital cash. It'll have zero yield. Your Wells Fargo coin might have some yield on it, so that you'll be motivated to keep your money with Wells, instead of, just like if you put your money in the bank in a CD, you can get 1% from the bank, but if you keep the paper in your pocket, you're guaranteed to get 0% nominal yield from that money. I think the same type of situation will happen in the future, where banks will have to offer an interest rate above FedCoin to just attract depositors.
And does that mean, though, in your wallet you would have a FedCoin balance, you would have a
Wells Fargo balance, yeah, and a Bitcoin balance.
But then when you go to the store to buy something, will they accept all of the different dollars?
They'll accept your FedCoin and your Wells Fargo coin. And again, they'll accept the Wells Fargo coin because that will be they are a mainline institution. They have a powerful lobby. They'll be in the first 20 banks that get to, participate in this interoperable dollar blockchain, universe that they're going to create for themselves. But then a smaller bank, or like a Tether, might not be accepted at the Starbucks, where a Wells Fargo coin might be. So it's an uncertain future, and all we're doing really here is projecting what's going to happen. Nobody really knows.
But it sounds a little bit like the world of free banking, with these different dollars issued by banks.
It might be, and that's something that we see right now with stable coins. It is this era of free banking, and it just hasn't been institutionalized yet in the United States. So we kind of think of Tether as this outside the United States system, but it's really just an evolution of free banking in the digital era.
I wonder what it means for the likes of PayPal and Venmo. Will they just be processing and forwarding these various dollars, or will there be a PayPal dollar?
Yeah, I think that PayPal will have to have their own, stable coin in this universe, where if they want to participate in the global economy and have people send balances to each other outside of their own platform, they'll have to have some sort of digital token that they use.
And do we imagine that these separate digital dollars, these Wells Fargo coin, they will all be on the same blockchain, or there will be individual blockchains?
I believe that all private entities will issue their own version of this. And therein lies a lot of the challenge there. Well, Wells Fargo will hire some company to design their software. JPMorgan Chase has already built their JPM coin using some third-party technology that they've licensed. So and that does bring it back to Bitcoin, where Bitcoin is this ledger that anyone can access, and anybody can basically achieve the truth very quickly.
Yep.
And that gets lost when you talk about stable coins, central bank digital currencies, because then you have to basically you're introducing trust. It's the difference of trust versus trustless. And so the whole stablecoin world will involve trust, and it'll also require interoperability, which is its own nightmare.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen, I think only this week, what was it, Blockchain Bridge, Danny? Was that the one that was hacked, 230 million? Is that an interoperability company?
I believe so, but I know very little about it.
Yeah, let's look that one up. But interoperability, I think it was, it's Alex. Alex, I can't remember his surname, who tweeted about it this week because Eric Voorhees had talked about Thorchain and his ability to buy Bitcoin anonymously. And he raised the issue, but interoperability is fraught with errors.
It looks like it's a bridge between Ethereum and Solana.
Yeah. Ethernet and Solana.
Ethernet and Solana.
Solano. Yeah. Yeah, so this is fraught with dangers of hacking. My assumption is all of these will have backdoors, blocks, account blocks, the ability to refund, which was obviously, we have immutability with Bitcoin. A massive honeypot for hackers to attack and figure out if they can steal this money and spend it.
So for the listeners, let's just simplify all this, what
Yeah.
we're talking about with CBDCs and Bitcoin. It's very black and white. Bitcoin is an open, trustless system. Everything else requires trust and counterparty risk. And in the past, we have bank failures, we have bank fraud, we have bank criminal activity, we have defaults, we have everything. You are going to see the exact same thing in the stablecoin era. It's no different. So let's not try to, make it more complicated than it actually is. You'll have banks that offer, a safe reserve ratio and good interest rates, and they'll maintain clients over decades. And then you'll have others that are just total scam artists, and others that outright default because they take too much risk, and people will suffer losses, and you don't have insurance mechanisms put in place for the stablecoin universe or anything close to it, where like you have FDIC insurance for the first $250,000 in checking account deposits in the United States today. So the insurance mechanisms, all that kind of stuff, it's underdeveloped for stablecoins. It doesn't really exist. And so you'll see losses.
Well, won't the FDIC insure this in the same way?
They will, but they haven't yet.
Okay.
Right? And that will take years. I mean, it'll take years to get all this stuff legislated. But yes, I do believe the FDIC will end up having a framework for stablecoin deposit insurance, because the issuing entities will have to be registered with the FDIC and pay into the insurance fund. It's an insurance fund. So they will have to pay insurance premiums to make sure they can put the FDIC logo on their stablecoin app.
So one of the things that I like about the current financial rails, financial systems, is that it's fragmented. So I have a bank account, and I have a debit card with them, I have a credit card, I have Bitcoin, and I have cash. I have all those assets available to me. So even here, if I come out to LA and for some reason my debit card doesn't work, I have my credit card. And look, if both of them didn't work, I could transfer Danny some Bitcoin and say, give me some cash. And back in the UK, sometimes banks, their systems go down. That's it just happens. And maybe Barclays goes down one day and you can't access it, but I have my credit cards. It's fragmented. I worry in this system, beyond all the surveillance and obvious things, because I think it's going to be hard to avoid using part of the CBDC system. I don't believe every shop's going to be accepting Bitcoin before they accept CBDCs, so you might be coerced into using it. But it feels like a more fragile system because it isn't so fragmented.
Well, when we think about forcing everybody into CBDCs, if the government says we will only take Fed coin, like the IRS says we'll only take Fed coin for tax payments, then you're going to have to purchase it basically in your Wells Fargo app. You'll have to hit a button that says swap my Wells Fargo coin for Fed coin before I send it to the IRS. So it's not necessarily that you're driving everyone right away into Fed coin. It's that if you structure your system in a way that you only accept it for certain things, then you'll point people in that direction.
But my assumption is, whilst it's very clear that Fed coin will be a mass tool for mass surveillance, tracking every purchase. They'll have those records. The banks will probably be put under pressure to provide the same surveillance tools.
Yes, that's what, and the banks already do that. So that's why we have this $10,000 rule. But if you really, you just ask anybody anecdotally, if you go into the bank and try to take like $2,000 out, they're going to ask you all these questions.
Yep.
And here's something fascinating.
I always say drugs and hookers.
Vegas.
Yeah.
This is what I find fascinating now. I'm in a physical bank branch maybe once every couple months for something. I like to use the app for as much as I can. Sometimes I actually have to go in there. Almost every time I'm in a bank now, I hear somebody trying to get their money out, and then the teller is asking them 15 personal questions out loud, and I can hear every answer. So if I'm like, malicious, I can be recording every answer, everything, the income, social security number. They're asking these things out loud to the people that are in the bank just to get a couple $100 out or deposit this or transfer this.
Of their money.
Of their own money.
Of their own fucking money.
That's right.
So this is one of the things that's got me in trouble, because I've openly admitted that I've lied continually to the bank for years. Every single time they ask me what's money's for, I always lie, because I think it's none of their business. I ended up losing my bank account with lawyers because of this. I mean, I've told this a million times. Everyone's heard it, but
You're too famous now, Pete.
I felt it's just none of your business. I had some call center person calling me up and asking me about my payments and what they were for and what I was doing. I was like, it's none of your business. I'm a grown adult. I don't need to tell you. Like, if you have a reason to be suspicious, then go to the police.
That's right.
But we're not in Minority Report.
And I think that, again, to bring it back to Bitcoin, this is why people want to keep their money in Bitcoin and outside of the system, because there's surveillance at every step of the way. And so, your question was about, will the banks, the commercial banks, be doing financial surveillance when they have their stablecoin? They're already tracking everything. The intelligence organizations already have access to all payment data on credit card rails anyway. So everything is already tracked. And that's just the world that we live in. And Bitcoin is an option outside of that system. And I do think that it'll drive a Bitcoin native economy. Lightning Network is something that we've talked about for a long time. Mm-hmm. A Lightning Network native economy where the money never leaves Lightning. And commerce is just happening all around the world instantly on Lightning. Never dollars, never even the blockchain, Bitcoin blockchain itself, just within this network of instant commerce where there's no surveillance, there's no approval of transaction, there's no cross-border fees or anything like that.
Okay, let me go back a step. Do we know what technology people are using to develop these CBDCs, and are they capable of handling the volume and the transactions? So we know, for example, Ethereum isn't particularly decentralized. We know why. My assumption is this blockchain won't be particularly decentralized. But do we have any idea of which rails they're testing on?
Yeah, we do. We know that the central banks are, like the Fed, for example, the Boston Fed is working with MIT to...
What do you mean the Boston Fed? There are regional feds?
Yes, there are regional Federal Reserve banks.
I never knew this. Explain this to me.
Okay, so the Federal Reserve Bank of New York is where... is considered the official central bank, where they have the open market operations desk where they do QE out of and all that kind of stuff. That happens at the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. The Federal Reserve Bank has several branches around the country. Originally, what they were for is to basically be the distributors of paper money to and from commercial banks, where you need a Kansas City Fed, a San Francisco Fed, and a Dallas Fed to service the banks. But in terms of outright independent policy from each other, that doesn't really exist. The Fed banks are really there to support their local community of banks within that region. So the Boston and every Federal Reserve branch does their own research, for example. So right now at the Boston Fed, they've partnered up with MIT's blockchain labs, I can't remember the exact name, to explore FedCoin on an official basis. And the Federal Reserve Board has basically acknowledged that we are following the Boston Fed's lead here to explore what we're going to do. So MIT is going to basically be able to deliver the Fed the right advice in terms of which technology to use. MIT is a Bitcoin forward institution, so they understand what security advantages Bitcoin offers over other blockchains. So I believe they're going to end up using a private, basically a non-blockchain, a non-proof of work, even a non-proof, any other system like that. They're not going to use that. They're going to use basically a private software, a glorified Excel spreadsheet that they know is tested, that works, and it's not open for anybody to really affect. Maybe you can audit it from the outside, like a read-only privilege, but in terms of being able to affect it, no, I don't think.
So it probably won't even be a blockchain.
I agree with that. I don't think it's going to be a blockchain in the way that a blockchain is a chain of blocks and a chain happens with a mining process. So I don't think that there's going to be anything like that. It's just going to be a distributed ledger. They love the term DLT because it doesn't have anything to do with mining, in which it doesn't. DLT, distributed ledger technology, is a shared Excel spreadsheet. It's a shared Google spreadsheet. There's nothing beyond it. That's kind of how it works, and then the user interface will be, of course, different than a Microsoft Excel.
Are there, if we're going to be honest and fair, are there any upsides to CBDCs that we should recognize?
Well, think about the social impact of universal basic income to those who need it. They are going to be, first of all, they're going to have an easier time collecting benefits, people that need universal basic income, but they're also now going to be able to vote themselves more benefits in a more direct and easier way. So when I always like to use quantitative easing as the opposite example. When the Fed when the economy is going into recession, now what the Fed does is they'll do QE, which means they create reserves, issue them to the banks, and hope that the banks lend that money to the public. And that's their form of stimulus. But if they're issuing Fed coins directly to mom and pop, you don't have any risk that the monetary policy doesn't transmit. Basically, you're guaranteed for it to transmit to the people. That's an advantage to people that hope the Fed will help them. They have been looking on the outside, looking at stocks going up and saying, what the fuck? You're only helping asset owners. You're not actually helping people. Where's my small business loan? The Fed's QE does none of that, accomplishes none of that. And so from the perspective of the people that need and desire stimulus when the government is issuing it, those people will benefit from a Fed coin. So that's like one thing that I would say, step into the shoes of people that need a form of universal basic income, which I'm not going to take either side of it politically. What I know is that UBI is here. It is absolutely here. It's with us. I have a 4-year-old. I receive $300 a month from the government for the fact that I have a child. I didn't ask for that money. I didn't apply for it. And I'm someone of means. So it's not like I'm on some,
Is this new?
This is over the past several months, since the pandemic.
And that just, wow. So every child now in America gets
I don't know if it's every family that's receiving this or how much they're receiving it. All I know is that I get a direct payment into my checking account of $300 from the government. I get an email that notifies me that I've received the payment, and it's called the child tax credit. And it's because, I
mean, we have something in the UK, a child allowance. It's a lot smaller. It's like £20. I don't know if it's a week or a month.
But this is something brand new.
Okay.
And it is issued by the Treasury Department.
Huh. Okay. And so you think there's going to be expansion of that?
Oh, it's not that I think. UBI is here to stay. It's going to grow. We have examples around the world that central banks and governments will borrow from And I think that, listen, I actually think that a future with UBI, instead of the million other ways that the government steals money from point A and gives it to point B, I actually think UBI would be an improvement over some of that. And that would be assuming that other programs get funneled back into UBI and the money actually just goes straight to people. No subsidies, no direct benefits for XYZ, but just actually money to people. I think it could marginally be an improvement.
Well, one of the arguments for universal basic income is that social security programs, welfare programs, there's so many different programs out there that you eliminate a lot of the cost and the bureaucracy of running them. I spoke to Erika Rhodes about this. I might be wrong including social security in that, I'm not sure. But
yeah, I mean, I would generally speaking agree with that it would improve the logistics for the government for them to be able to give this money.
And so if we're changing the distribution of money from the banks out via loans to people directly into the wallets of the people who need it, with a great example of what happened during the pandemic, is that should, I don't know if it's not going to reduce the wealth divide, but it's going to reduce the speed at which the wealth divide has grown because of the Cantillon effect.
It's hard to say what it's going to do to the wealth divide. It definitely gets people money in their pockets quicker that need it, but the long-term impacts are unknown, meaning that it could drive inflation for the people that it's most dangerous for, to the point where it ends up making the wealth divide even worse. So it's not a good thing that we'll have more UBI or that it'll replace other programs. It's just it does change kind of who benefits first or that first order of effect of the stimulus.
And are you putting that $300 a month into Bitcoin for your daughter?
Stack stats and stay humble all the way.
So CBDCs are here and coming, and they're inevitable.
Yeah, and really, the conclusion of layered money is called freedom of currency denomination, and that is really what I believe that we're going to have. We do have now an option in terms of how to store our money. We can have it in paper. We could have it at the checking account level. We can have Bitcoin only. We could have some Tether. We could have a portfolio of securities. We could have a Robinhood app. And we have choice now in terms of how we are going to store our money. I believe that choice, at least at the very minimum here in the US, is going to stay with us. And we will continue to have that choice. So you'll have FedCoin, JPMorgan coin, Bitcoin, Tether, and you'll have to choose, and you'll have the right. You have the right to choose how to denominate your labor, your earnings, your savings. And I think that's the future that we're in for, is this era of currency choice. And thank God for Bitcoin.
Yeah. And in some ways, there's parts of this sound better. This kind of like era of free banking within a CBDC environment. There are some things about that you think about and think, well, there are upsides to that.
Yeah, when you think about also like Alex Gladstein's talking a lot about Tether,
yeah,
and the benefits for people outside of the United States and using a stable coin that is superior to other things that they have access to or other savings vehicles, and they might prefer Tether over Bitcoin because it doesn't have the same volatility for their daily transactions. That's a benefit. That is a benefit to people that tool is available to them. I can't directly say like that a Fed coin will benefit people outside of the United States or anything like that, but we know that all of these instruments are just giving people choice. It does present risk and introduce additional risk, but it also presents choice. And over time, the strong survive.
Okay, what do you think it means for dollarized nations like Ecuador and El Salvador? Will they then have to issue their own, like, I don't know, El Salvador dollar on a blockchain?
Potentially.
Yeah.
Potentially they'll have to have their own stablecoin, and maybe the bank can, the government itself can acquire dollar reserves, put them in a bank, and issue them on top of the Chivo app as a dollar coin, side by side with the Bitcoin balance. It's something that's very possible.
And what kind of time frame do you think we're looking at for these Fed coins being a realistic part of society?
Yeah, so I think the ECB will launch some sort of digital euro beta, actually have banks test it within the next year.
Wow.
I think we're pretty close to the ECB launching some sort of beta project. The Fed is a couple years away. I think the Boston Fed and MIT will publish their report this year in terms of steps forward. And then, over the next couple of years, we might see a pilot.
But within then, say, 5 years, they might be a mainstay of pop.
Within 5 years, I think we'll have a Fed coin.
Wow.
Live, being used in your wallet.
What should we be scared about with this?
What should you be scared about with FedCoin? The surveillance, I think, is the only thing that we need to be scared about, because if we have choice, we can just choose not to use it. And so I do envision that if you and I think, like, going back to the IRS example, when the IRS is collecting taxes, they'll say we accept FedCoin, but oh, by the way, we'll also accept Wells Fargo and JPMorgan coin because we know that they'll give us all your information too. So we won't be able to avoid the surveillance just by not owning FedCoin. But I think, that's probably the thing that we need to be scared of for the most. But it will, I do think it does give the dollar more runway, and over the next couple decades.
And what about synthetic dollars, programmatic dollars issued on Lightning? I've heard rumors of people working on such projects. Do you think that's a reality?
I mean, stable coins issued on Lightning is a reality.
Okay.
And it's something that I saw an interview a couple months ago about this, and I really agreed with the person who was saying that Lightning is a transactional network. And so if you can, it doesn't matter what you link to it behind, it's still going to have counterparty risk of the issuer, but using the Lightning rails to send stablecoins, for sure.
Okay. Wow, I didn't realize it was coming this soon.
CBDCs are definitely coming. Remember, China has launched theirs already. It's live, and it's being used in certain parts of the country. And China is going to use it as a geopolitical tool to spread their influence across the world. Africa, different parts of Asia, Latin America, companies that want to do business with China in international trade will have to use digital renminbi to transact at some point over the next few years. The United States will feel threatened by that, and they'll have to respond accordingly to try to get countries not to basically have to purchase digital renminbi or accept it and hold it on account with the People's Bank of China. So there's a lot of geopolitical stuff that is going to unfold with China being first, that the Fed and ECB won't be able to ignore. And if you read what's coming out of the Boston Fed and even Jerome Powell, they know that a Fed coin is coming. It's just going to take them a little bit of time.
Well, one weapon that the US government has, if they choose to use it, is promote the adoption of Bitcoin.
That's right. And I do think that USA is extremely Bitcoin friendly as a nation. Even when you hear all the fear, uncertainty, and doubt surrounding the energy complex and Bitcoin mining and volatility and all that, that's just coming from pockets of the media or certain politicians or certain bankers. But when you look at Americans own Bitcoin, they want Bitcoin, they work for Bitcoin companies, they own shares in Coinbase, which is issued in the United States, they own shares of an ETF, which is regulated by the Securities and Exchange Commission, which has an 80-year history of legal precedent. So Bitcoin is fully legal, embraced, and supported by the United States of America, even though we'll still have people that are screaming anti-Bitcoin rhetoric.
Senator Warren.
She is
A fucking idiot.
she's phenomenal in the way that she spins the, just the narrative out there. Like supermarkets are really to blame here for inflation.
Yes.
Pretty ridiculous.
Yes. I think it was a real shame. There was a time a few years back where I kind of appreciated her because she was challenging Wall Street. She went to town on Mnuchin when his appointment happened, and she was rightly saying that the White House or the Wall Street had an arm within the White House, and I thought, sounds like she gets it.
So I do I was told a story that Senator Warren it has been briefed by altcoin projects to basically be anti-Bitcoin in an anti-proof of work sort of way, and not in a way that some staffer has just come and said, but that she's read documentation that shows this is why you have to say this and that to be against Bitcoin because it has proof of work, because our project will benefit if that happens. So she's just another politician, and I wouldn't make too much out of what any one politician says because you don't know what lobbyist has gotten to them first. And you should be skeptical of every politician on both sides of the aisle when it comes to Bitcoin rhetoric, and really look at what people and companies are doing.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think we're way, way beyond the point where the US government ever bans Bitcoin. It's too
Impossible.
Yeah, it's too integrated in society. There's too many jobs affected. There's so much net wealth affected. I don't actually think there are that many people who want to. I think it's more they want to surveil it.
That's right.
They just want to track. What are you spending? Are you paying your taxes?
And, Bitcoin is also scary to the establishment because it's a non-government entity. And and the internet is too. So that's why they're scared of the internet and freedom of speech on the internet, because the internet doesn't have a ruler, it doesn't have a jurisdiction.
Yep.
And so Bitcoin is in the same, so we can expect fear, uncertainty, and doubt to be, thrown at Bitcoin, just as it's being thrown at all these people on the internet that are expressing their opinion. They're not trying to disseminate misinformation. They're trying to express an opinion. And that's, what speech is. Bitcoin is a form of speech. Cryptography is a form of speech that the U.S. justice system has, allowed for it. In 1999 ruling basically said that cryptography is just like if an economist was using math. It's a tool, and they should be able to express their view through cryptography.
Coded speech.
I'm sorry?
Is it the statement coded speech?
Yeah, exactly. Coded speech is taken from this idea that this 1999 court ruling.
And we also have other things in favor of Bitcoin at the moment. We have a number of politicians who are also pro-Bitcoin. We have Senator Lummis on our team, but we also have a number of politicians across the US. Josh Mandel recently came out very supportive of Bitcoin.
Think of it like this. If we found a new element on the periodic table, we called it like Bitcoinium, let's say, and we found Bitcoin.
Avatar 4.
Yeah, exactly. We found Bitcoinium, and it was found under, off the coast of California in the Pacific Ocean. And then, a Mexican team found it off of the coast of Mexico. And people started finding Bitcoinium, and then they started using it in technology, and it worked. It was a good technology, and it helped. How do you come in and try to be anti-Bitcoinium? It's just an element that came from the earth. So Bitcoin, I think of it like the same thing. How can you be anti-Bitcoin? It's just a piece of code. It's just a software that we found. It's a tool that works. It's like, let's not use the wheel because it's new. It doesn't make any sense. And so, of course, you have pro-Bitcoin politicians because they're just pro-people and pro-innovation.
Well, also the game theory's changed. With so many people owning Bitcoin, and a number of the politicians have figured out the hack. Oh, if I'm a pro-Bitcoin politician, I suddenly get 10, 20, 30,000 more followers who are all behind me and support me.
That's the politics side, and you'll definitely see that here in the U.S., especially where people, it doesn't cost you anything to be pro-Bitcoin. You'll just get a healthy following, just like your Bedford Club.
and invited on a bunch of Bitcoin podcasts. Yeah, well, it is actually the same game theory.
Yeah.
It is, you become part of this growing thing. But I stand by this point that if there's any fears over China and China's influence and what they're doing, is the more Bitcoin, which is owned by the United States or people within the United States, is that strengthens the United States, because we know on a long enough time frame, Bitcoin continues to go up in value as more people adopt it. So the net wealth of the country will accelerate quicker than the net wealth of China.
And why do you think that Bitcoiners are here in the United States? They are starting companies here. They are not shy about it. They are supporting political candidates to argue their position. And so Bitcoin, America is the home of Bitcoin. It really is. And it is because we identify that if we have it here, it's going to benefit the country in the long term, because the people and the companies inside the country have and use Bitcoin.
Which is why educating politicians is actually super useful. Some people ignore them. I think actually educating them. I mean, I want it in the UK. We have a chance now, post Brexit, to be a leader in the support of Bitcoin and having a Bitcoin economy. I just don't think our politicians have recognized that yet.
Yeah, it's going to be tough because politicians are focused on a lot of things, but there are good efforts, and we're in the beginning stages of Bitcoin still. It really is the beginning, but you will see 2022 cycle be influenced by Bitcoin, I think, materially for the first time, and it'll only increase going forward.
Okay, so what do you think happens to smaller countries where currencies are less stable, collapse? Do you think, as we move forward the next 5 years, do you think some of them will start to maybe dollarize with something like Fedcoin, or do you think they're all going to start introducing their own CBDCs? Because who was it, Danny? Do you remember who said that they think there'll only be eventually only seven currencies?
It might have been Balaji, but I could be wrong with that.
Yeah, somebody said there will only be seven currencies. There'll be the dollar, the pound, the euro, the yen, maybe the Canadian dollar, and Bitcoin. And
so I roughly agree with that approach, where I think currencies will die and countries will go basically El Salvador, where El Salvador ditched their own currency for the dollar years ago, and then they did. You might see countries do both at the same time. So like Turkey's currency is collapsing. If it continues to completely collapse, they just go, we're going to do a dollar slash Bitcoin and replace the lira tomorrow.
that would be interesting.
And so I think that what you'll see is countries with outright currency collapse will end up dollarizing and then have maybe Bitcoin as an option B. But countries that have really, really weak currencies will do the El Salvador, where they do the parallel Bitcoin thing at the same time to try to maybe strengthen their currency, because if Bitcoin is legal then in that country, then it'll attract people, and then they'll have to use Bitcoin and the local currency, and that'll maybe support it. But I do think that weaker currencies will absolutely die in this stablecoin Bitcoin world that we have, where the foreign exchange traders are also totally ruthless in attacking currencies that just look at the lira right now. Look at what happened to the Argentine peso. These countries, they can't do anything to fight with the onslaught of foreign exchange traders that basically recognize a weakness.
But Argentina's been through this cycle again and again, currency collapse after currency collapse, in high inflationary period after high inflationary period. But they always come back to.
Well, it's a powerful and a rich country, so they have the ability to replenish their system because they have natural resources, etc. It might not be the case in really small countries that, I'm not calling Turkey a small country, but I'm thinking certain African nations and other Latin American nations that, might have to introduce a Bitcoin parallel standard just to stay afloat in the global economy, because it's so competitive out there for business.
Okay, so what happens to gold in this environment?
I think gold is dead. I mean, I think gold maintains this idea that it will maintain store of value, but it's dead in terms of you'll never have a gold anchored monetary system again, and you'll never have a country say we're going to do a gold backed currency. I just think that that's never ever going to happen. And a lot of gold bulls bet on gold because they think that one day a country, maybe the US or somebody else, will do a new gold standard. I absolutely disagree. I think that's never going to happen.
Because
It's
the problems previous, it's centralized.
Yeah, I mean, we tried gold. The layered money is about this attempt to have gold anchor a monetary system. It worked pretty well for 700 years and then basically broke down, and it'll never be tried again.
And you think what kind of certainty do you or percentage do you put on that we get into a gold Bitcoin standard, or is it just it will? Do you think it's inevitable?
I don't think any Bitcoin standard is coming in an official capacity in United States, Europe, etc. I think it's a natural Bitcoin standard,
Agreed,
and it happens. It happens slowly but surely, and sometime over the next, let's call it 10 years, you'll have half the world's population that owns or has some exposure or uses Bitcoin in their, so like 4 billion people in the next 10 years.
Well, the interesting thing about Bitcoin Standard, I think I was talking about this on a show the other day. It was like a real light bulb moment for me, was that you don't have to have an official Bitcoin Standard. You can option yourself on it. I'm on a Bitcoin Standard. My podcast is on a Bitcoin Standard. My football team's on a Bitcoin Standard. I assume you're on a Bitcoin Standard. So the more of us that do this, it's a standard that grows organically. It becomes its own thing. That was a real light bulb moment for me. I was like, okay, yeah, and because it's organic, you can't get rid of it.
You can't get rid of it, and you can't stop people from when they game recognize game. When you recognize somebody else that will do business with you forever on Lightning, you'll never use the dollar with that person ever again, and you'll never have transaction fees ever again. And you can transact around the world with each other. And that's how Bitcoin Standard grows. So I have a few readers of my publication on Substack, the Bitcoin Layer, that email me. I'm not suggesting everyone do this, but people have done this. They email me and they say, hey, this one article is behind the paywall. Can I send you like $3 on Lightning so I can read this article? And he sends it to me, and I email him the article behind the paywall, and that's it. And he's and I have people that have a Lightning. They pay my subscription via Lightning Network thanks to OpenNode integration with Substack that they did. So I'm accepting Bitcoin, and I obviously don't swap that Bitcoin for dollars. I keep it. But you have people that are like, hey, I know you will accept my Lightning. I don't want to pay a monthly subscription. I'd rather just pay you $3 Lightning. I just invoice him 5,000 sats, 6,000 sats, and he sends it to me, and I email him the article.
You need Substack to integrate that as well.
I'm working on them.
I'm
working on them. Yes.
So I did my first open node purchase of something via the web store for my football club this morning.
Excellent.
So we integrated OpenNode into our
that.
Shopify.
Yeah.
And I did the test this morning. It was so smooth.
Yeah, it works quick. It's a great interface. And with all credit due to the OpenNode guys, this is really Lightning Network that we're seeing in real time. The user experience of being able to send and receive Bitcoin instantly via Lightning is incredible, whether you're using OpenNode or another Lightning Network platform.
Yeah, you're totally right. I mean, obviously, I had the option on there of base chain and Lightning. I tested both. Plugging in your hardware wallet and sending the payment, it's just not as smooth as getting your phone up, scanning the QR code and doing it. I think it was OpenNode I used to buy a McDonald's in El Salvador.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
I know they're the processor for McDonald's.
I was amazed that it was built into those terminals.
Yeah,
McDonald's.
I can't wait to go.
It was insane because on the morning it happened, we were filming, and so it was like, okay, we're going to go to Starbucks and we're going to McDonald's, we're going to test this out, and both did it in different ways. Part of the Starbucks experience was slightly smoother because they just stand there with a thing and hand it to you, and they've obviously in McDonald's they wanted to build it into the terminal, so they had a slightly different process. Right. But the fact that it got built into the terminal, I was like, well, how does this happen? Because these terminals and the software must be issued centrally by McDonald's. So therefore, did they have to go to McDonald's HQ to get this added in?
I no longer have the inside scoop on how they did that.
No, I mean, I'll ask them myself. But no, it was more of like a process I was going through in my head. It's like, well, if they did, therefore, McDonald's HQ are now aware of Bitcoin payments can be done via their terminals. How difficult would that be something for them to roll out to McDonald's globally?
And this is what I struggle with sometimes with the short-term thinking out there and Bitcoin's price volatility. Look at the future ahead of us. McDonald's is using Bitcoin
Yes.
in El Salvador, in one tiny country. And it's just one small example of how the world is going to evolve to a Bitcoin standard. It's not going to be legislated. It's just going to evolve that way where people will go up to the terminal and they'll have to make a decision every time. Am I going to spend my Bitcoin or am I going to spend my dollars?
And do you know what? The interesting thing about that is when you're traveling, actually, sometimes it's easier to spend your Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I used to go to El Salvador, it's like, oh, I need to get some money out. Where do I go to the cash machine? Yada, yada. Do I have dollars on me? Don't I? I don't actually need dollars in America anymore.
Yeah, just
sorry, El Salvador. Once, and actually, it'd be more useful here. Like when you get off the plane, you get in the car and you go to the Starbucks drive-through because you need a coffee. It's like, actually, if I could just scan my Lightning wallet, this would be super easy.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, they did it in 3 months. Announcement, live date 3 months later, McDonald's was ready.
It's incredible. And Bitcoin really is, it's easy to implement because you don't have to actually, you don't have to trust anything but the network. So as long as you have the correct infrastructure, the network behind it doesn't take any testing. It's been tested.
Are people spending enough time thinking about Lightning?
Yeah, Lightning is still really small, Pete. I think I'm obsessed with Lightning because of what it can do and the potential. But on a relative size, Lightning's only like 100 million. It's on Clark Moody's dashboard if you could pull it up. But I think it's only like 3,000 Bitcoins. And so it's super tiny. And people will underestimate Lightning Network because of how tiny it is in size, but still the technological innovation behind it is going to drive a lot of Bitcoin adoption over the next several years.
Got it, Danny?
Yeah, it's 3,400 total capacity at the moment.
So what's that? Well, that's that worth like $120 million, right?
Also, though, when you see the charts of the capacity, it's just going up in one way.
Yeah, it's going up, but it's still like less than $1 billion. Bitcoin is 700 billion in market cap. So it's less than, it's less than a fraction of a percent in terms of its size. But so that's why people just aren't getting, globally as excited about it. But we identify this technology as a game changer for Bitcoin. So I think it's just going to, adoption at the margin is going to happen with Lightning, like McDonald's. That's a Lightning integration at the same time as the Bitcoin integration. So that, I think, will be repeated over and over again, and the Lightning Network will grow because of it.
And why are you obsessed with Lightning? What is it you see that maybe I don't see with it?
When you have a currency that uses this 10-minute blockchain for settlement process, it's phenomenal for the store of value role, but it doesn't make it work in an online, instantaneous way. So we live in an internet world. We want to be able to stream. I want to be able to stream you sats every second I listen to your pod. I can only do that with Lightning. I cannot do it with Bitcoin. So you have a million use cases that open up with the instant settlement and non-mining process of Lightning Network transactions. And you need the security of Bitcoin's blockchain to secure the asset. And you need this app called Lightning Network to transact it instantly. Once you've agreed with each other that we both have Bitcoin, we should be able to use it instantaneously with each other. It's the same thing of going from paper money to a Venmo balance, where the paper money it's not useful to in commerce. But the Venmo balance is, because I can spend it instantaneously, and one uses the other as its layer, right? In theory, Venmo has a pile of dollars in some bank at PayPal, that they're using to back all this activity. Lightning is the same thing, but it uses Bitcoin and it doesn't use any counterparty. That's the game changer. That's why I wrote The Time Value of Bitcoin in 2018. That's why I'm here, because I wanted to share with the world that Bitcoin is transformed from a commodity to a currency thanks to Lightning Network.
So it is a currency.
It is now with Lightning.
And do we need to? We definitely need some updates to the tax laws, because that makes it problematic.
I saw a $200
yeah.
exemption today, so that's a good start. And we need stuff like that. And I think that de minimis exemption is. I talked about it in my Austin keynote address at the Texas Blockchain Council, and I know that some of the more prominent people that are trying to lobby Washington for the Bitcoiners are pitching this de minimis as one of the first big things that we need to get Bitcoin commerce going in the U.S.
What else do we need, though?
We need more clarity across the money transmission laws. So we have 50 different states, and I know from experience that that's a huge challenge. Every single Bitcoin company has to do 50 different regulatory procedures.
Yep.
That needs to be smoothed out. I think that's a big one, getting the states and the feds on the same page in terms of a regulatory framework. And then what part of my mission is gonna be helping define Bitcoin from a government's perspective. This whole idea of Bitcoinium, or thinking of Bitcoin like water, which I saw on Twitter, or Bitcoin like, the
Talk me through that.
Well,
water.
You have your shitcoin will be Coke and your shitcoin B will be Pepsi, but you have water. It comes from the earth. It's not like it's just an element. And that's why I use this, the periodic table example, or I like the metric system example as well, where I don't know if you want to Google this, but like the kilometer is like I think it's from the North Pole to the equator is like exactly 10,000 or 1,000 kilometers. I can't remember exactly what it is, but it's basically a mathematical truth.
It's 10,000 kilometers.
10,000 kilometers from the North Pole to the equator, right?
Yep.
And so the Earth has these natural laws and things about it that we've identified as truth. And Bitcoin is one of these. It's outside of anybody's control or anybody's creation, really. It's just math, and it's something that's an element here. And so if we can promote this idea of Bitcoin being naturally occurring as opposed to a creation, a man-made creation, then it starts to separate the politics of Bitcoin. Where how can you be anti-water or anti the kilometer? It doesn't make sense. Or like anti-hydrogen. I know we're anti-carbon now, but that's a separate issue. But you know what I'm trying to say here is that Bitcoin needs to be understood as something that's more naturally occurring and something that's apolitical. And I hope that's part of what I'm able to write about at the Bitcoin layer and elsewhere.
It sounds like, therefore, when you've been able to focus on Bitcoin full-time research and writing, that you're having more revelations yourself.
Yes, it does. And the engaging with readers and doing interviews like this is huge, because if I'm just sitting at home and reading, I'm not engaging with ideas. I'm just brainstorming, right? I like to go for drives and brainstorm articles and things like that. But until I'm sitting down with you and actually talking, some of the, like the Bitcoinium thing came out of my mouth in an interview as I'm trying to just give an example. And so, the engagement with the readers and the interviews are, that's what it's what takes the ideas and makes them more of a reality.
Well, there are a lot of people who are starting to realize like Bitcoin is one of the most important ventures of our times. Aligning it with the internet,
Yep.
with microprocessors, with the light bulb. But we still have this mass production of shitcoins. Every season, more shitcoins. The further I go down the rabbit hole, the further I understand that shitcoins are meaningless.
Mm-hmm.
But we still have this issue of trying to translate that to the wider people. So not only the shitcoiners, But my experience in running the football club is there's a lot of media interest in Bitcoin now. They want to ask me questions about it. And I've realized how far away we are as people down this rabbit hole from them. And even trying to get the basics across is really super difficult. How do you think we get to that point where we cross that, where Bitcoin is ubiquitous?
Is there a book that you could recommend to people to?
I tell you what, have you read The Bullish Case for Bitcoin by VJ? Maybe it's layered money, but like that's a big step to get somebody a book.
You know, it does take a lot of time, and it is really tough to explain that, oh, we have this new thing called Bitcoin, but also all the shit coins are pretenders. They're not going to replace Bitcoin. It's a long haul to get people to understand, but it just happens slowly and one by one. So you do your best when you're out in the media, answer everyone's questions, with a smile on your face, and just try to explain to people, and hopefully price is truth over the long term. People understand that Bitcoin still has survived. Ask anybody if they've heard of some of the coins that were popular 4 years ago, 8 years ago, and as a test, like, have you ever heard of this? No. Well, it was the number 2 cryptocurrency 5 years ago, and it disappeared, because this pattern happens all the time. Bitcoin is 13 years old. Pretty soon you'll be able to say Bitcoin is 2 decades old. How old are these other things? And so it just will take time. And it is tough to get people to read a book and say, learn about this Bitcoin. It's tough to get people to watch a 30-second YouTube video as well if they're just not ready for it. So myself, I've stopped going outbound and trying to convince people that Bitcoin is something. That's something I used to do at the beginning of my Bitcoin rabbit hole in 2016. I'd tell everybody I know, every cocktail party, every family dinner. It's just me ranting about Bitcoin.
Shut up, Nik.
Yeah, I mean, honestly. But I stopped because people that are open to it are either long Bitcoin already or are already reading about it. And, the information is out there for people. It's whether they want to learn it now.
Wow. Well, I always love talking to you.
It's really great to be back. It's great to have you on the West Coast here. You got a gorgeous setup.
I know. I do love LA, despite its criticism of what people say. Every time I come back, I'm like, I do love it here.
Listen, when I was in Texas, everyone said, "So when are you moving to Texas?" I'm like, "Have you seen where I live?"
Have you been to California? Have you seen it? No, it is beautiful here. I love this ocean that we get to look at, and I love almost every part of California. I don't love everything about California, but all the parts, all the cities. We're going up to San Francisco, despite all its shit and problems. I'm going to enjoy the drive.
Absolutely.
And I'm really glad you're doing another book. I want to brainstorm on that with you if you ever want to pick my brain. I like subject lines and titles.
Absolutely, yeah. I will definitely lean on your feedback for it.
Okay, well, listen, tell people where to get the book, tell people where to follow you, Nik, and
yeah. So everyone can find me and all my links at layeredmoney.com. That's the title of the book, Layered Money. You can subscribe to my Substack publication at thebitcoinlayer.substack.com. The link's also at layeredmoney.com. And I'm on Twitter at timevalueofBTC.
We'll put it all in the show notes. Definitely go and buy Nik's book and definitely sign up to his Substack. And I'm really so happy for you that you've got to do this full time. I've been doing it full time now I'm in my 5th year, and it's an amazing life you get to live. You get to go out and speak to people and travel and learn more and educate people and support the Bitcoin mission. So I'm glad you get to do this full time. And congratulations. Anything I can do for you, you just reach out to me.
I appreciate that, Pete. Peace and love.
Peace and love, Ben.